This is History Literacy Ready, Unit 2, Lesson 8. And this is an overview of the United States in Vietnam. It is the first time this new topic in Unit 2 is introduced, and that topic is Vietnam. So what do students do? In this lesson, they're going to learn a bit about the context of the Vietnam conflict through a PowerPoint presentation. And the focus of the PowerPoint presentation is on the political instability in Vietnam and President Johnson's attempts to overcome the challenges that he faced in Vietnam. Before students start, they're going to write down a list of words, phrases, images, etc. that they associate with the Vietnam conflict. It's possible that every student in class has heard something about the Vietnam conflict, so this will get a chance for you to get those ideas out on the table to see where your students stand on it. And they should discuss what they already know about the topic. And there are some vocabulary words that they're going to encounter, and they can look at these words to identify the terms that they already know, and maybe start thinking about some of the terms that they do not know. Now, one of the things you might have to confront is that students will discuss misinformation or have strong opinions and beliefs about Vietnam. If perhaps their grandparents were veterans and have told them things, they might have these very strong beliefs. You don't know. If that is true, it'd be important to remind students that they should view the PowerPoint with both skepticism and an open mind. In other words, just because it says something that goes against what you believe doesn't mean that you shouldn't really listen to it. That's the cornerstone of a democracy, is that you can evaluate other opinions other than your own. So, and this is also an ideal that's aspired to by historians who want to try to honestly make sense of the past and take their own viewpoints out of it. They want to be able to look at the past with these kind of new eyes, these open minds. So in activity 2, they're going to view the PowerPoint and they're going to take notes, and they're using the modified Cornell notes that they've already practiced before. So this should be not new to them, but you know how they did on the last time that they took notes, and so at this point maybe you want to talk about some things that they could do to improve their notes or things they need to pay attention to. And also, they are being asked to pay attention to Johnson's motivations, goals, and tactics in dealing with Vietnam. Well, this is something that historians look at. It's something that they make inferences about and often make claims about, is Johnson's motivations, goals, and tactics. So this would be engaging in an activity that historians might engage in. As I said, historians often make claims about historical actors. And so this is a genuine activity for students. You are actually pulling them into the historians club when you're doing this. You're getting them to do the activities of these experts. Also, interestingly enough, there are disagreements about Johnson's motivations, goals, and tactics. So that in future readings, you can tell students they might encounter or want to make alternate claims than the ones that they actually see as they go through this PowerPoint. And since students are often motivated by controversy, especially high school students, you can use this to get them interested. So when they finished with the PowerPoint, return to the last slide, and on that last slide there is a list of claims that historians have made. Now, it's just a list of claims. There is no evidence there. So one of the things that you would want to do is to have students think about the kinds of evidence that would be useful or helpful in supporting each one of those claims. after they've done that, after they've thought a little bit about the kinds of evidence that would support the claims that historians are making about it, then they can work in pairs and small groups to write down what they already know about Johnson's motivations and tactics now that they've read the PowerPoint. So this activity helps students understand that historians make claims about the past based upon evidence that comes from the historical record, and this evidence comes in sources such as artifacts, documents, etc. from the time period. Those are the primary sources, and about what other historians have claimed and the evidence they presented, and those are secondary sources. And it also reinforces the idea that students need to think about what evidence is being presented for the claims and if that evidence is compelling or not. Now, this PowerPoint doesn't have a whole lot of evidence for the claims, but it's just laying out some of the claims. So they're going to be reading as more about Vietnam in the next couple of weeks. So they'll need to be having that lens in mind about the kinds of claims that historians are making about Vietnam, and they'll be going through the documents and looking for evidence for those. And as always, students need to be thinking about the overarching questions for the entire unit. What does our involvement in Vietnam say about our conceptions of freedom and liberty? What were Vietnam's conceptions of freedom and liberty? This is an interesting point because, at one point, the North Vietnamese were espousing doctrines that were very similar to the ones that the United States has espoused. So that's an interesting counterpart that you can look for as students read the documents. So after they have done those activities, they can return to the discipline-specific vocabulary. Remember that discipline-specific vocabulary is the vocabulary about the people and the places and the events and bills or measures or policies, that kind of thing. So what they did before, remember when they first started the lesson, is they went into that list of discipline-specific terms and they looked for ones that they already knew and they wrote down what they thought those were. Well, now when they return to it, they can revise those based upon what they just read, and they can add on to what they just read by perhaps there was something that they knew nothing about. They can go back and now they can explain that term. Now, students are going to be reading a lot about Vietnam and the rest of the text in this unit. And their understanding of the discipline-specific terms is going to grow. So you want to come back to these as they read, but you should not feel that you need to tell them everything about these terms at this point in time. Remember, you want students to be able to discover what they are for themselves without you telling them everything. Let them do the work. So if they don't get some of these right, they're going to be coming back to them. They're going to be fixing them later on. So just hold off on that and let them go back and do some revision as they discover new things. So that's the end of the lesson. This is their introduction to Vietnam, and they're going to be doing more on this topic through the rest of the unit.